Hello, hello. Hey, okay. Hey, well, good afternoon. Good afternoon. I'm back. I'm back from Walmart. Yeah, that's right. Um, cool. So yeah, I might put up a whiteboard for my ideas, you know. But I gotta learn first, because I do not um know what I'm doing. So how do I delete projects? Well, where is that YouTube video that I was watching? Oh, thanks, hon. And there's a drink too, I think, but it's okay. I got food, so I guess you guys are gonna have to suffer with me eating. I'll just mute the mic, I guess, as I do it. She freaking wanted to go to Walmart with me. She never does anything by herself. Never. Okay, so we were at basically creating a project. So I think I'm right where I need to be. Um,
Made project to help point you in the right direction with a lot of stuff already done for you. For example, if you're in the car industry and you want to render out a car, then possibly going into the automotive tab and selecting Photo Studio will be a good template from where you will start. But for our cases, I want to start from complete scratch. So I'm
yes.
going to come to games and make sure I select blank. Now down here is the project location where our project is going to be saved. I just
Games blank. Okay, I'm following along.
want to save this on the desktop. If you do want to save it somewhere else, then you click on the file icon right here and browse to a different folder. Now, right here is the project name. So let's call this one first project. And up here are some project settings.
What again? I'm following along.
Now I'm
Naming.
going to leave it at blueprint since we're not going to be going over C++ coding in this video. And down here, I want to make sure starter content is enabled. Starter content will give us some nice assets that we can play with to help us learn Unreal Engine 5.
Okay. Okay.
Below that is ray tracing. We're not going to go over ray tracing just yet. And of course, to create this project, let's click on create. So
Okay. So in theory, I should get what he got, right? In theory. Oh man. Oh man. No, I'm just gonna eat it like that. Why waste utensils? Okay. Um, this is not. This is not the same. Okay, so it's basically first. Oh wait, nope. I don't have a body. I just float. Okay. Shift F1. End. Okay. Fascinating. So we did it, but it came out completely different than what this guy's got. I don't know.
this is what you should see when opening up Unreal Engine for the first time. Don't worry, we're going to go over what all these different windows and buttons do in just a second. But before that, I want to go over how Unreal Engine stores projects. So let's exit out of this project, and we can see that a brand new folder was created on our desktop. Remember, I selected my desktop as the place to save our project. Essentially, this folder contains
I don't see that, but that's okay. That's okay. I'm not too worried about this.
All the data that makes up our project. So whenever we make a change in our project or we create something in the project, it's going to be stored right here. Now to open up our project again, all you have to do is double click on the .u project asset right there. And that will open up your project from where you last saved it. To begin, let's briefly go over how to navigate the user interface and what all these different windows do. So probably the window that sticks out the most is the viewport right here. The viewport is essentially just a view into our 3D world that we're creating. So for example, we can fly around and look at our world. We can even grab objects and manipulate them all within the 3D viewport. Now, don't worry, we are going to go over camera controls and how to move objects in just a bit, but I first want to go over what the different windows do. Right above the viewport is the toolbar. The toolbar is pretty important because it's where we get a lot of our tools and a lot of different buttons we're going to be continually pressing. For example, what if I want to add an object into our world? Then I can click on the plus icon and scroll down to shapes, and maybe I add in a sphere and place it in the world to move it around. I can also switch modes. So right now I'm in select mode, which is the main mode where we can move objects around. Let's say if I'm making a landscape, I can go into landscaping mode and create a landscape. Or I can go into foliage mode and start to paint foliage if I do have those assets. If you're curious, we are
Preparing shaders. Okay. I gotta give it a second. The game's kind of shitting itself immediately. Hmm.
going to go over both modes later in the video. Now to the right of that, we have the outliner. The outliner is essentially a list of all the objects that make up my current world. So for example, if I want to select a chair, but the chair isn't in my view right now within the outliner, I can select the chair right there like that. I can also select multiple objects by holding down control. So maybe I want to select both chairs, just hold down control like that, and maybe also the statue right there. The
Hmm.
outliner is also a great place to organize your world. For example, we see we have all these folders. Real quickly, if you want to create a folder, all you have to do is right click, create folder. Let's call this one my folder, and hold down control. Let's select both chairs and simply drag them into there just like this.
Hmm.
We can also hide and unhide objects. For example, maybe I want to edit something that's behind the table, but the table's in the way right now. I can come here and temporarily click on the eye icon to hide the table.
The problem is I don't have any of these objects. So hopefully it doesn't mean anything. We'll see.
And then click on the eye icon again to unhide it. And right below the world outliner, we have the details panel. The details panel is essentially where we can edit all the properties of an object that we have selected. For example, maybe if I don't like the scale of this chair right here, I can select the chair and come to scale and maybe increase it by 2 in the Z axis, which is the vertical axis, and see that we have a really long and tall chair. Now, I don't like that edit, it looks kind of weird, so you can always press Ctrl and Z in Unreal Engine to undo anything. Now, we do have one more default window. That's arguably the most important window since it stores everything we're doing. It
Okay.
stores information on the chairs, the table, even the entire world, and that is the content drawer. You can get the content drawer by going all the way down here to the bottom left hand corner and clicking on content drawer like that to bring it up.
He says the most important one. blueprints, materials, particles, props, shapes, textures. Oh, look at that. Okay. How do I lower it? Perfect.
Alternatively, since this window is pretty important, you can press Control and Space at the same time to bring it up and close it. So if you press Control and Space, it's going to bring up the content drawer, and this gives us a folder view of all the assets that make up our project.
Yes.
So for example, if we want to see where this chair is being stored and maybe we want to edit the chair, then we can come under Starter Content, Props, and right there we have SM_chair. If I double click on it, we can see the chair asset and make any adjustments.
Props. Oh, I do have it. That's crazy. So I can mess with the prop. I can change the prop. I can change its material. How interesting. How interesting. Okay.
If we do need to. Now we're going to go over the static mesh editor later, so I can exit out of this window by clicking on the X icon. I'm going to press Control and Space again to bring back my content drawer, and probably the best example I have for the content drawer is that it's like your computer's file explorer. So just like on your computer where you have folders, and in those folders you have subfolders, and those subfolders contain assets like text files or Word documents, same exact thing with the content drawer in Unreal. So you have folders, and in those folders you have subfolders, and finally you have all those assets that make up your project. So for example, here we have the starter content folder, and I can go into it by double clicking like this, or I can click on it right here within the folder window. Now I could go into any of these different folders. For example, the maps folder contains the map we're currently editing. So we can see up here that this map is called minimal_default. Right there's minimal_default. We can double check that we are editing this map by double clicking on it to open it up. Let's go save. And we can see that it did open up the exact same map. Now, if I ever want to go up a folder, I can always click on here. So right now we're in the maps folder. If I want to get out of that, I can click on starter content. And if I want to get out of that, we can even go to content right there. Now, don't worry, if you don't have starter content, you can click on add and then add feature or content pack, and then go to content and simply select starter content and add a feature. Or if you don't have starter content, you can click on add and then add feature or content pack, and then go to content and simply select.
Oh my. That's cool. Okay. Hmm. Okay. That's interesting. They got blueprints. I'm not really interested in VR. Vehicles, I am kind of interested in. APB's got vehicles. I want to make an APB like. So, third person vehicle. I'm not interested in top down. I don't care for handhelds. It'd be these two that'd be really fascinating. But for now, we're gonna close that out. Let's see what else.
Select starter content and add a project. I'm not going to do that since we did add it when we were creating our project. As you can guess, the content drawer is a pretty big deal. And maybe you don't want to press Control and Space all the time to bring it up. You always want it docked in your layout. Well, all you have to do is click on docked in layout like this. And now your content drawer will be right here at the bottom.
Oh, that's
And notice
way
how
more
it's called
convenient.
content browser right now. Not
Whoa, that's way more convenient. How did he do that? Is it docked already? No, it's not docked. You know what? Screw it. I'll keep it down there. I think that's nice.
called content drawer. So whenever I say content browser and content drawer, just know that I'm talking about the same exact thing.
Content
Now,
browser.
this is
Okay.
great, but this tab right here is taking up a little bit of real estate. If you ever want to get rid of a tab, all you have to do is right click and click on hide tabs. If you want to get back that tab, then you can click on the very small blue triangle and that will bring back your tab.
Perfect.
Also, tabs are great because if you left mouse button and hold, you're able to move this around and dock it somewhere else. So maybe if I don't want content
Follow your
browser at the bottom
dreams.
right here,
I'm gonna make a better APB, bro.
I can dock it to the side, or I can even dock it to one of the tabs right here, and
I'm
now I'm
making
able to
APB
switch
2.0.
in
Just
between
wait.
details and the content browser. Also, if you ever want to move windows around, you can hover in between the windows, and then you're able to move it down just like this to adjust exactly how you want your user interface. Now, another neat trick is that if I dock my content browser right here, and let's go make it a little bit smaller, and maybe I don't want it always visible, I can right click and go
Make it so I can get my son to play in our clan when the time comes. It's gonna take me 40 years to make this game. You fucking kidding me, dude? I know literally nothing. Literally nothing. Look at what I'm watching. I'm watching an
dock to
actual like
sidebar. Now,
tutorial.
whenever I want my content browser or any other window, I can just click right
I'm
here
hoping to make a map.
and it will show. Now,
Within
if
a
I don't
week,
want
I'm
to dock to
hoping to learn how to
sidebar,
make a map.
I can right click and unlock from sidebar just like that. Now I'm going to click on the X icon to get rid of that content browser.
But he's still playing with
Alternatively,
the web
if I
browser.
want to automatically dock all my windows in a sidebar
He's still
except the
docking
viewport,
things.
I can click on F10, which will go into full screen mode. And now we can see that my outliner and details window and any other windows I have
Okay, that's actually kind of convenient. So if I want to just look around at the game, okay. You've seen Pair of Socks in our Discord showing videos on it. Maybe he can direct you a little. Oh, I never saw those videos. I was working when he posted those, so I didn't get a chance to actually watch those videos.
on the side
I'll,
will
I'll,
go
I'll, I'll
into
have to
docked
message him
mode.
and see
And then I
how
can
much he
click on
knows.
F10 again to bring those windows back. So F10 is a neat shortcut to automatically dock all your windows. Now,
Still
these are
talking
just the
about docking.
default windows. If you want to see all the windows that are available to us, we can come up to Windows and select any of these. Now, one window that we are going to be using a lot is the world settings. So world settings, as you can guess, just has a bunch of different properties and settings that we can play
He literally showed the entire APB map with movements of characters and added melee. That's so fucking cool. The thing is, though, man, I'm not gonna. Well, because obviously, I mean, I'm gonna make an APB like, right? It's not gonna be APB 2.0 literally. I'm gonna make my own map and stuff like that. I want. My goal. Here's some of my ideas. I want you to tell me what you think about them. But I'm gonna set up a whiteboard so I can like lay them out. But one thing I want to do is I want to break apart the map to have like sections and have a criminal and enforcer contact basically competing for control of each of those sections in the city. So whenever you pledge to someone, if you win a mission with that contact, that counter goes up, and then whichever contact has more wins, uh, the city changes based off of who it is. So if it's an enforcer, you're gonna get like more muscle cars. So for example, it'll be like the Vegas or the Jericho, and then I'll have a couple like the Kirai and stuff like that. And then it'll be like business people walking around, and it's gonna be very clean. If the criminal contacts and like winning in that district or uh, area of control, it's gonna be like there's gonna be graffiti everywhere. You're gonna see more of the criminal vehicles like the charge micro and all the criminal faction the vehicles stuff, right? And it's gonna be like punk people walking around, trash kind of floating around. I think it'd be cooler if there was more
with
interactivity.
to edit the map we currently have opened. Now, for example, what if we
But
really
of course, I need to learn how to do basics.
mess up our user interface? It's
But as I learn and develop this game, I want to try to set it up in ways that helps me in the future to kind of make those kind of features a thing. But I think that'd be really cool if like pledging to contacts meant something that physically affected the world around you would be really awesome. Melee, that's interesting. You know what I was thinking of at work when I was thinking of making a game? Another feature, because you know how people complain that like enforcers have LTL but criminals have nothing? I was thinking of making it where like the vigilantes, I'll just call them vigilantes. Vigilantes can have the less lethal stuff, but criminals will get like a guaranteed execution like melee button. when the player's health gets low enough. So when they're basically one shot or something like that, right? Instead of having to shoot them, they could just push the button and then do like an execution kill. I think that'd be kind of interesting, kind of cool. I don't think it'd be OP because you'd only really, but I don't know. Like I said, these are ideas and goals.
Basically unreadable. We have no idea what is happening. Don't worry, we can always come up to window and all the way down here go to load layout and click on default editor layout, which will
Well,
just reset
we'll see. Because like I said, I know literally nothing.
all of our
But
windows.
as
Now that we have the very basic,
another thing I wanted to do, another idea I had as I was thinking about all this was having it where there's AI, like NPCs, where because one thing that really sucks right now is when you're in a district where there's like nobody, right? The city's like calm. There's no chaos. There's nothing. You can't even play missions. You can't do anything. One thing I wanted to do was I want to kind of go back to how like APB was, where you could get a mission, but it'd just be like unopposed. But then have it where there's like four little NPC criminals, four NPC like cops. It's gonna be law enforcement, right? And they're gonna have like underpowered weaponry, so they're only gonna be using pistols. They'll drive like exclusive vehicles that only they can drive, but they'll be like garbage cars. And then they'll basically be constantly duking it out, and then you would be the difference maker, you know. But that way, the idea is in an empty district, you could have like 3 or 4 missions constantly going, so there's always be kind of chaos happening with the AI. And when there is empty districts, players could actually do something, can play um, still. But even then, they're going to be weak enough where I don't think they'd be a challenge. So if it was player versus player, it's just basically like a minor nuisance. You know? They're just there to keep the mission going, basically. Because I'll have it like where they just kind of stay near the objective and then they just go and fight the objective, but they never take the objective. The players would have to be the one to take the objective. I think it would be kind of cool. But once again, these are just
basics of the
base
user interface
ideas.
out of the way, we can move on to the fun stuff, and that is camera navigation. So how to navigate our camera around our 3D world so we can view it at all different angles. To navigate is actually easier than you think. So
Is
you
he
want
doing
your
camera
cursor
navigation
inside the
now?
viewport, and then you want to hold down the right mouse button. If you now move your mouse with the right mouse button held down, you are able to look around your scene.
Yeah,
And
okay.
still, with the right mouse button held down, you're able to use the WASD keys to move around. You can also use
Oh,
E and Q to go up and down. So that's E to go up, Q to go down, W to move forward, S to move backwards, and A and D to move left and right. All the while holding down the
I just need to sit through this. I already know this. I just need to sit through
right mouse button. If
it.
you are not holding down the right mouse button and you try to use WASD, then nothing will happen. So make sure you do hold that down. Now we can also control our camera speed. So let's say, for example, there's an object that's really far away and you want to go towards that object, but your camera is moving too slow. Well, if you come up here to the top right hand corner and select the camera icon, you're now able to control that speed. So right now we're at 4. We can also bring this up to 6, and now we are a lot faster. And we can bring this all the way down to 1, and we can see that we are pretty slow. So let's leave it at 4, and a shortcut to access camera speed is to, of course, hold down the right mouse button and use the scroll wheel. So scroll wheel up will move faster, and scroll wheel down will move slower. So that's a shortcut.
Useful.
That's how you don't have to come up here and continually play with the camera speed if you
That's actually kind of useful. Oh my god, I was. Cool.
do want to move faster or slower. Here's a really good tip. Let's say if you scroll really far away, so you fly really far away from where the bulk of your geometry, where your world is, and then you look around and you can't find your objects anymore. What you can do is come up to any of the objects right here. Let's say, for example, the chair, select that, and then press the F key to focus on that object. So if you select an object, you can press F to then snap to that object, just like this. So that's how you're never lost in your world. So if you ever played any first-person games, you should be right at home since the muscle memory is there for the WASD keys and rotating your camera by moving your mouse. Now, if we press F again to then zoom in onto an object. We can rotate around that object by holding down Alt and the.
The only thing that sucks is his map spawned in with items. Mine didn't. In fact, I think my map looks completely different to his. But I think that's okay for now.
Left mouse
I don't think
button.
he's
So
gonna use
Alt and
any of
left
these.
mouse button allows us to rotate around a pivot object. And if we hold down Alt and hold down the right mouse button, we can zoom in and out. So right mouse button, zoom in and out. Left mouse button to pivot around that object. And to focus on an object, of course, we want to select it and press the F key just like beforehand. Before we move on, let's briefly go over the viewport controls. So we know the different ways that we can view our world. So up here we have perspective. Let's say if you want a top-down bird's eye view, then we could click on the perspective button and select top like this. So to control in an orthographic view mode, you want to hold down the right mouse button to pan, and of course use a scroll wheel to zoom in and out. So right mouse button pan, scroll wheel to zoom in and out. We can also view it from the side.
Fuck. I want to skip through this and get to the part where he starts like working on stuff, but I already know if I do that, I'm gonna miss really important information, and then he's gonna start doing things. I'm gonna be like, how did he do that?
Side, like maybe the left side, same controls.
I just
And
need
of
to
course,
sit
if we
through it.
want to go back into perspective, we come up here, select the button, and click on perspective. Notice how a lot of the buttons in Unreal have a shortcut right next to it. For example, perspective shortcut is Alt and G. So instead of coming all the way up here and selecting perspective in the dropdown, I can just press the Alt and G key at the same time to go back into perspective. So right next to perspective is our view modes. So view modes are pretty great because they allow us to see our world in different ways. For example, maybe we don't want to see all the lights and we just want to see the colors of our world. Instead of coming up to lit, I can select unlit right there, or I can even select wireframe to see our world's edges and vertices. We will be
Oh,
changing our view modes a lot,
I see
since it's a great
nothing.
way to debug our scene and
Oh,
see
there
if
we go, I
there's
see it.
anything wrong. So I'm going to come back up here to lit, or the shortcuts are Alt 4 for lit, Alt 3 for unlit, and Alt 2 for wireframe. So let's jump back with Alt and 4 to get our default view. And right next
That
to our
was
view
lit,
modes
right?
is the show flags. So show flags allow us to turn on and off different object types. For example, what if I don't want this grid right here at the bottom? Then I could come to show, let's go find where grid is, and uncheck that to hide the grid. Now maybe for some reason you don't want to show our static meshes, and essentially static meshes are all the objects you see right here. Then within the show flags, we could uncheck static meshes. Now maybe I could come to show. Example, so show flags allow us to turn on and off different object types. For example, what if I don't want this grid right here at the bottom? Then I could come to show, let's go find where grid is, and uncheck that to hide the grid. Now maybe for some reason you don't want to show our static meshes, and essentially static meshes are all the objects you see right here.
Okay.
Then within the show flags, we can uncheck static meshes, and we no longer see those static meshes.
Jesus.
Now, obviously we don't want that, and if you ever mess up your show flags, you can bring back the default flags by clicking on use defaults. And keep in mind that we aren't deleting anything with show flags, they just help us see what we want in the viewport.
It just hides things. It's the same concept as just hiding it like this. That's cool. Except it's just everything. So if I get rid of fog, that's cool. Decals. What did it get rid of? Collision. Huh. Well, we'll leave it on default. Okay. Back to the video.
And finally, this is my favorite viewport option, and that is game view. So if we come up here and click on the button with the 3 lines, we have game view all the way down here, and we can see that the shortcut is G. Now if I enable game view, we're going to see exactly what the player will see in game. So if I press G,
So what does the player see? Nothing? Okay. That's useful though.
G to untoggle game view, we can see that we have all these different widgets, and we have the grid right here. And of course, the player won't see the sun widget right here, which controls the sun's rotation. Instead, if we want to see exactly what the game will see, we click on G to hide all those widgets and features that are here for us, the editor. So just know that throughout this tutorial, when you see a bunch of widgets and these widgets just disappear, that's because I toggled on game view with
Okay.
the G key. Now that we know how to navigate around our world, it's time to go over how to create new objects and move them around. So we're going to go over moving, scaling, and rotating objects. To begin, let's go over simple movement. I'm going to press a G key to get rid of our editor widgets. And now all we see is our world. So to move an object, simply select it.
Fuck, I
And
don't
by
have any
default,
objects.
we get...
Wait a second, I have no objects. I didn't get those objects. Wait a second, how do I do this? Hold on. Let me see if I can add something, because I got this chair here. Can I just drag and drop? Oh my god, I can drag and drop. Perfect. Let's move you. Not up. Okay, now you're just in the air. I need you to go down. And then was it control? I'm gonna slow down. There we go. That's so convenient, man. Playing with the camera like that. We're gonna go to like 0.8, so I can. We'll do like 0.6. There we go. So I can see. Okay, so now I can keep going as a tutorial. I'm learning. I'm learning. Hey, what's up, Frank? How you doing? How you doing, man? Welcome. Welcome. So I just want you to understand. I know literally nothing, so I'm watching this video to learn some of the basics, and hopefully I can make something. Now, I've only got a couple of hours before I got to get ready for work, so I've only got like I can't stay too long. Uh, but hey, thank you from Peru. That's awesome. Peru, yeah, that's now. That's cool.
the translation or the movement gizmo. To move an object, hover over any of these arrows and hold down the left mouse button.
Okay,
So I'm able to move this chair around, but notice how moving the chair isn't smooth.
I figured
That's
it out
because
already.
by default, snapping is turned on. Now you could turn off snapping by coming up here and unchecking the grid icon like that.
Okay, so this affects your snapping ability. Got it. Which it's now smooth. Look at that. So if I snap, oh yeah, it does, doesn't it? It just kind of. That's cool.
So now we can smoothly move our objects around. Now I'm going to turn it back on because it's important to know that Unreal uses centimeters. So right now, since there's a 10 right next to the icon, it's snapping every 10 centimeters.
Yeah.
We can change this by selecting the number, and in the drop down, let's select 100. So now it's moving every 100 centimeters, which is 1 meter. So every time this chair moves, it moves 1 meter. So that's pretty important to know. Now I'm going to uncheck it because I do want smooth movement. Next up is rotation. So to rotate your object, you want to change its gizmo. To change a gizmo, you want to select one of the buttons up here. So right now it's on translation. Right next to it is rotation. Now I can rotate this.
So we got rotate and scaling. As it's just selecting it. I can move it, I can rotate it, I can scale it. It's all fairly basic, but we're gonna see what else he has.
This chair in all these different axes. We can see that rotation snapping is turned on. If I want to turn that off, then right next to translation snapping, we have this icon right here. Make sure it's not blue. And now we're no longer snapping every 10 degrees.
That's
I
interesting.
can press Control Z to undo all those changes. And let's go over scaling. So right next to rotation, we have scaling.
Yes.
And scaling works pretty similar to the rest of the gizmos. All you have to do is hover over any of these squares, hold down the left mouse button, and now we're going to scale in that exact direction. So if we want to turn off scale snapping, of course, just uncheck the icon right there, and now we can smoothly scale. I press Control Z a bit because it's important to point out that if I hover my mouse not over one of the individual squares, but the one square that's connecting all of them, so the one in the middle, hold down the left mouse button, I can move my chair and scale it uniformly up and down. So not in any particular axis. So I press Control Z to undo all those. And if we hover over all these buttons, we see that there's shortcuts. So movement is W, rotation is E, and scaling is R. So that means it's W to move, E to rotate, and R to scale. So those are some of the most common shortcuts that we're going to be using consistently throughout our time in Unreal Engine. So again, one last time, it is W to move,
Yes.
E to rotate, and R to scale. I also want to point out that if we want to move our object in the direction of our object, then come up to this little globe icon, select it. That's how it's now a square. And we can see that we're now able to move the object in that object's direction. So move it locally instead of globally.
Whoa. How did he do that? There's like no difference. I don't know if I'm doing something, but it's fine. I'm not too worried about it.
If we want to switch it back to global, then click the square icon again to make it a globe. And now we're moving it in the direction of the world. And
okay, I see now. I see what he's talking about. So if I were to twist this, rotate it, we'll just put it like that. And then if I want to move, still goes this way. But if I want to go forward, goes that way. That's so cool. Okay, that's a cool one. That's a cool one. I like that. I like that. I like that. I get it.
and not that individual object. It's also important to point out that if I press W to get our translation widget, and if I hover over the square that's in between the different axes, I'm able to lock it and move it only in those two axes. So if I hover in between the Y and X axis, I'm just moving it in between those and not in the Z axis.
Okay,
I can
that's
also
kind of
lock it in between
self-explanatory.
the Z and Y axis, just like this. So let's press Control and Z to undo those changes. Now you're probably wondering, how do we create an object in our world? Well, there's a couple ways.
I drag and
Number
drop.
one is that we can duplicate an object. So with any object selected, for example, this statue, if I press Control and D, then we just duplicate that object.
Control D is duplicate. So if I take you, and let's make a folder. Okay. So we'll do. How do I just? Well, I don't want to create folder. And it's gonna be basic. I'll just do basic items for now. And then this chair will drag into my basic items folder. Okay. Okay. Control D. And it forms in there. Oh, look at that. I got two.
Now, we didn't notice a change. That's because it duplicated it in the same spot as the original object. So if I hold down the left mouse button and move it out of the way, we can see that we did duplicate that object. And within the outliner, there's now a new object called Statue 2, which is a copy of the original statue.
Yeah, I've got
So let's
SM
delete
too.
Statue 2, and there is an easier way to duplicate.
How did he delete? How did he delete it? How did he delete it?
We have the original statue. So let's delete Statue 2, and there is an
What? Is it do I just push the delete button? Okay. Okay, got it.
an easier way to duplicate. This is the way I duplicate. And that is hovering over an arrow with a translation widget selected and holding down Alt and left mouse button. So hold down both of those and simply drag And now we're able to easily duplicate and drag an object away. So let's press Ctrl Z to undo all those changes. Now, another way to create an object is by using the add tool up here in the toolbar. So for example, let's click on add and let's come all the way down here to shapes, and maybe we want to drag in a sphere. So we drag it in like this, or we can even add in a light, like a point light, and we're able to drag it around in our scene. So let's go delete those. And finally, the last way to add an object is through the content browser. So let's bring up the browser by holding down Control and Space at the same time, pressing both of those. And let's go into props. And to add an object into the content browser, hold down the left mouse button and drag it into your world.
That's what I did.
For example, this couch. So let's go move it down just like this. And now we have a brand new object. So by holding down Shift, you can select multiple objects. So for example, if I have my chair on the left selected, and I want to select the chair on the right, if I hold down Shift, now I have them both selected. If I hold down Shift again, I can add in the table and the statue. Now, if I want to deselect an item, all I have to do is hold down Control and click on any items to deselect them. Now, all we have is the statue and the left chair selected.
Okay.
And here's another tip. If I have the chair selected, hold down Alt and the left mouse button to drag out a new chair. Let's say if I want to drag this chair all the way over there, then I'm going to have to drag it across the screen, move my camera, drag it across my screen again, and it's just a huge hassle. Another way I can do it is by holding down the Shift while I'm dragging. So if I'm going to hold down the left mouse button on one of these arrows, and I want to lock my camera to the object, simply hold down Shift, and you're able to lock a camera.
That's interesting. So if I did Shift. That's nuts.
Camera to an object, which can save on a lot of time. So I'm going to press delete, and let's create a very simple scene just to get a hang of all the controls. So to begin, I want to hold down Shift, and let's select these two chairs, hold down Alt, and duplicate them out. So let go, hold down Alt and left mouse button again, Alt and left mouse button again. Now let's go rotate some of these chairs. That's how they're facing inwards. So select a chair, press E to get the rotation gizmo up, and have them all face inside.
I'm making something. I'm making something. Okay, and he was talking about rotating. So I still have all three chosen. So he said press E for rotate. So we'll rotate. Oh, that's not how I wanted it. Shit. So I guess I have to individually manually do each one. I'm kind of following his tutorial right now. I'll start making something once I have a better understanding. Hey, yeah. This is cool. This is actually really cool. I did it. I actually I actually learned something. I actually learned something. Um oh my god, that's so cool. That's so fucking awesome.
Just like this. Again, it doesn't have to be pretty perfect because we're just trying to get used to the controls at this point.
Right.
And then I'm going to select the table, press R to scale it, and I want to elongate the table just a little.
Okay, so he's gonna make the table long. Got it. So we're gonna go to content drawer because once again, for some reason mine didn't spawn in with this stuff. But I have it here. So he wanted the table, so we'll drag and drop it in. R to scale. We're gonna scale it to be elongated. And then is it W to move? Yeah. Well, actually, let's make it a little wider. How's that look? Hey! I hope you learn a lot. Love your APB videos too. Well, thanks, Bryce. I appreciate it. Thanks. The reason why I'm even doing this is because I want to make an APB like, I guess, right? I want to make an APB that I want to play, or that I can demonstrate on how I think APB could be done differently. But of course, because I don't know anything in terms of game design, I'm learning to make a game. I even have a plan now to maybe put up a whiteboard in the back so I can write down my ideas, my ideas for that I want this game to have. But I'm starting somewhere, and I'm playing it slow. So even though I think I know a decent amount, this I didn't know. But when he was going through like the menus, I was like, oh, I can browse the menus. But I'm really glad I'm taking it slow
A
because
little bit, maybe
he's
even in
teaching
its
me a lot.
x-axis. Press E again. Let's rotate this. Press W. Move it into the middle right there.
I got it,
Select
baby.
a
I
chair.
got it.
Hold down Shift. Let's select the other chair and move them all in. Let's select the statue. Move it into the middle. Press R. Scale this up. And
Let's do that. Let's put that in. I'm gonna follow along with this little thing. So let's see. I kind of can't see it, but I think it's because of the light element. But bam, it's like super see-through. I don't know if it's because of my computer limitations, because I'm obviously on a laptop, but I think it's just the light. I think the light's just burning through it.
maybe add some lamps on both sides of the table. So press Control and Space. Within our content, starter content, and props, we have this SM_lamp ceiling. If I drag it in, this is exactly what I want, but right now it's in the opposite direction. So I want this to be placed on the ground.
Okay, so he's gonna rotate it. Okay, let me see if I can get this done without him walking through it. Right. So we're gonna find the lamp. It says ceiling lamp. Move it up. R E. We'll rotate. Bring it down. Oh, good enough. Oh, wait, let's get rid of the, so it's smooth. That way I can put it actually on the ground without it causing me problems. Bam. Should I scale it? It looks a little low, doesn't it, for being a lamp? Let's scale a little bigger. And then we'll do Control D to duplicate. Move it over that way. Unfortunately, for some reason it snapped up off the ground, but I'll just lower it. Bam! Hey! Let's see what he does. Let's see what he does. I got my lamps. I got my lamps.
I can press E, rotate this, and try to get to 180 degrees. Or I can press Control Z and re-enable snapping for rotation right here. And rotate it exactly negative 180 degrees, which is what I want. So press W, and let's move it. That's how it's directly placed against the ground, like right here.
Yeah,
So
I did it.
could try to guess
I got it.
exactly where it is, or I could snap any object I have selected to the object that's directly below it by pressing the end key. So that's END, not the end letter. So press E.
Okay, well, there we go. So we're gonna... Oh, let's see what he does. I want to see how he does it.
END, end, and snap it there.
Oh, it just snaps automatically to the ground. Okay, so let's take you and... And I don't think it's gonna be noticeable because I think I did pretty good. Let's actually move it up just so I can see it. Yeah, okay. See, I didn't know that. I didn't know that. That's cool. See, this bothers me actually because even though I got the lamps right on the, oh, actually this one's not right on the, there you go. Okay, that looks better. All right.
Here, just like that. So press R again, scale this up in the Z axis, hold down Alt, and drag it in both the Y and X axis. Right there like this. Let's hold down Shift again and drag both of those across our world.
Okay, so I didn't do that. He had the couch on the other end, so I didn't want to like steal his thunder, you know. So why is it? And oh, hold up. I think I messed up. Control Z. Okay, and then it's gonna be Alt. I think the floor is uneven, but then we'll do end, and hopefully it snaps. There we go. Okay. Actually, I think I went too far. Up, and up, and just to make sure it's on the ground properly. This is actually cool. I'm having fun. I'm having a lot of fun. I'm not gonna lie.
Just like that. And I would say, congratulations. You now have a very, very simple level. This is definitely not the best map, but it is pretty good as a first level.
Okay,
Now,
okay. That means I got my level for APB. Perfect. Everyone's gonna play in this square. But I don't have a ground or walls or anything. The problem in this one is that he's got his starter came with like a floor. Mine just in
now
with
that you've finished
blocks
your first
already.
level, it's time to move on to the post-process volume. So we're going to go over how we can change the settings of our viewport camera, specifically exposure. While in the process of creating our first level, you might have noticed that if we zoom into the shadows, we see our screen gets brighter and brighter and brighter. And then when we zoom out, our screen gets darker. So that is
Why is that? Hold on. Does that happen to me too? Oh, it does. What?
auto exposure. And what exposure is trying to do is that it's trying to mimic the way our eyes work. So, for example, if you've ever been in a very dark room and you decide to jump out into the daylight, you can feel your eyes start to hurt and everything is really bright. But slowly over time, your eyes start to adjust until everything comes into focus. And that is exactly what Unreal Engine is trying to mimic by brightening our screen and darkening our screen. So
Huh.
I think we can create a better example by duplicating this map and creating a little house. So to do so, let's press Control and Space to go into our content drawer. And I want to duplicate minimal underscore default, which is right now located in starter content and maps. So right here is the
Starter content maps. Hey, we're moving up. We're taking the step up right now. So he went to starter content maps, minimal default. But let's see how he implements it. Does he just double click
current
or?
level that we have. There's a little asterisk right next to it, and that
Okay,
tells us that it needs to be saved. So press Control S to save the level.
Control S. What am I on? Let's just do Control S. What did I save? Save level as first project. No spaces allowed, okay? First project, save.
And to duplicate the level, simply press Ctrl and D to duplicate. Now let's go rename this to post process example. And let's
He wants to duplicate this one. Control D. Post process example.
go save it. So if I double click on minimal underscore default, this is the current map that we've been on. And then if I double click on post process example, this is the new map that we're about to.
What a... Did I do something wrong? Where's my map? Wait, what have I been working on? Where is it? First project. Oh. Oh, mine's in content. Not exactly a map. He was... He didn't go over that. Okay. Well, screw it. So if we double click on this, save selected, opening this. Okay, so now we're in that. Okay, so let's just recreate what he made then, I guess. Well, the floor is still different. Well, whatever. Let's just see what he does. Mine, I'm kind of not.
To edit. Now notice that our grid is pretty large right now. That's because we have our snapping set to 100. We can make the grid squares smaller by saying this back to 10
Okay.
as its default. So now our grid is a little bit smaller.
That's fine.
Or you can press G to hide all those editor widgets. Now I want to start deleting all these objects. So simply select an object
he's just deleting
and delete it to get rid of it. And here is a little tip. If I go into the outliner, since I do want to delete all these chairs, I could hold down Control and select each chair individually, or I can select the first chair at the very top of the list, hold down Shift, and select the last one, and then it'll select everything in between. So Control is to select in.
I don't want to get rid of the floor. We're just gonna get rid of that. Hit delete.
Individual objects, and hold down Shift is to select a row of objects, and press delete. Now let's create a little hut. So I'm going to.
Glad to see you enjoying the process and challenging yourself. Stay consistent. Repetition is key. Yeah. Hey, thanks, man. Well, I'm probably gonna be doing this every day. I was initially just playing Death Stranding, but then I was like, I don't feel productive playing Death Stranding. And so I figured why not? I figured why not?
And hold down the left mouse button on cube to add in a very simple cube. Keep in mind that this is just for demonstrations.
I missed something. How did I already miss? I looked away for 2 seconds.
Delete. Now let's create a little hut. So I'm going to come up to add and hold down the left.
Cube. My God, why does mine look so ugly compared to his? Is it because of all the lighting's literally sitting right there? Oh, I bet he has it. Hold on. I remember. Lit. He's got everything unlit, right? No, he doesn't. Why does his look so much different than mine? I don't understand how he has something that looks so much different than mine. And up, up, and okay. Let's see what he does with the
mouse button on cube to add in a very simple cube. Keep in mind that this is just for demonstrations to show exposure, so this won't be the best. Hold down Alt. Let's go duplicate this wall, and hold down Alt again. Press E, and I want to make sure snapping is turned on so I can rotate this exactly 90 degrees right there. Hold down Alt again, and drag it out just like this.
Okay, so he's making. Okay, I see, I see, I see. Okay, so let's see. I click on you. R. Shrink it. Not invisible, please. I need it a little bit longer, huh? Just so it's in the ground a little bit. Okay, maybe a little smaller. That way there's space. And then he did W Alt. Move things over. Move it over. Okay. E Alt, and we're just gonna duplicate one. Was it 90 degrees? Okay. Lower the scaling until it somewhat fits. I'm not 100. W Alt. That Alt is super convenient. And these little hotkeys that he taught me, oh my fucking god, bro. W, E, and R is so convenient. Otherwise, I'd have to come up here and push these buttons. I don't think it's that inconvenient to do, but it definitely feels very, very time saving. Okay, so we kind of got what he got. I think he's a little taller in terms of scaling, but we can just. Okay, I think that's good though. We can do. Just to make sure I have all of my basics covered, we're going to go up, then end. So it's all sitting on top. Okay, so I got my walls. Let's see what he does with his. Once again, why does his look so much different than mine? Is it because mine's a is it because I'm on like 5.5 whatever the crap we're on and he's on 5.0? Is it just the lighting is different or the material's different? I don't understand how my stuff looks so drastically different than his.
So hold down Alt, rotate this as a roof, and I do want a slight opening so that the sun can come through and illuminate the inside of this hut right here like that. So now notice that if I zoom in on this,
Okay, well first off we're gonna copy him so I can see it firsthand. So that I can see it firsthand. I need to make sure I'm paying attention and I can understand what it is that he's talking about. Let's actually make it a little bit wider. That way we get a little creep in of light. We'll lift it. I'll do end. Okay. Once again, it's good enough. I'm not gonna worry about the edges here. It bothers me, but whatever. We're just doing this for the example.
and go inside the hut, we can see our screen get brighter and brighter and brighter. And then as soon as I fly out, our screen gets darker. So when I go inside, our eyes adjust. It gets lighter so that we can see exactly what is inside the hut. And then if I zoom outside, our eyes get darker. Now, this can be annoying if you are building out worlds. So to turn it off and to lock your screen to a certain brightness, we could come up to lit and all the way down here under exposure, uncheck game settings. Now we have a constant brightness that even if I go inside the hut, we see that our screen isn't getting darker.
But does that affect the game itself? Gonna buy it at release. So I see what he's talking about with the brightness. I but if we go it's in lit, right? If we get rid of game settings, okay, wow, Jesus. but I don't get affected by it. But it's still being effective in the game, right? It's not like he got rid of the feature. He's just hiding it from his like game developing. I think is what he's talking about here.
Now, right underneath game settings, we have EV100. If I bring this down, our screen
Oh,
gets
hell no.
brighter, and if I bring this up, our screen gets darker. So we can leave it at 0 for now. Now,
What am I at with my EV? Well, mine's at 1.0. So if I do 0, okay.
there is just one
Oh
issue.
my god, guys, it's a 5 hour long video. Holy cow, I better be a freaking expert at this. I know I don't even have 5 hours. It's 9 o'clock. I need to get ready for work at like 10:30. I need to get ready for work at 10:30. So I've only got an hour and a half. So I guess I'm gonna do this tomorrow too. I'm gonna do this for I guess a few days. We'll see.
And that is this change doesn't apply to gameplay. To play the game, come up to the toolbar and click on the play icon.
Yeah, see, it doesn't apply
Now
to
we are
gameplay.
currently in game. But if we, let's say, go into the hut, we see auto exposure is
Yeah,
turned on since
still
our screen
happening.
gets brighter. And when I leave, the screen gets darker. On a side note, if you want to stop playing the game, press the escape key to exit out.
Well, let's do this. Let's run through it. The sign of my garbage computer struggling to boot this up. Oh shit, guys, I didn't make it wide enough to even fit in there. I'm like a real fat bastard. Okay. Darn. I can't even replicate what he did. You can still kind of see it though. Okay. I just hit escape. Alright, let's see what he...
Maybe this is what you want. When you're building out your world, you have a constant exposure, and then when you're in game, you have auto exposure turned on. But if you do want to edit the exposure directly in game, this is where post process volumes come in handy. Now, we won't be able to see the
Does, does APB have something like this? I know when you get injured, it does something where it makes it harder to see, but I don't know if they have like an exposure system in that sense. I'm trying to think if I'm ever in like a dark room or something, if it changes. I think that'd just be too distracting, right? Too distracting?
exposure changes with the post process volume, with game settings turned off. So come up to lit and make sure game settings is turned on again. And within the outliner, by default, we will have a global post process volume for this map. So with the post process volume selected within the outliner, we see that we have a drop down called exposure and we have exposure compensation. Now, in order to edit any of these properties, you want to make sure that they are turned on first.
Well, so he's in volumes, audio, post process volume. No, his says global process. It has to be this though, right? Wait, hold on. I don't think I'm seeing the same thing he's seeing. One second. I think he, dude, I didn't literally for 2 seconds I didn't pay attention to what he was doing. He's in something called volumes. We're gonna back up just a second here.
Volume with game settings turned off. So come up to lit and make sure game settings is turned on again. And within the outliner, by default, we will have a global post process volume for this map.
Okay, so it must be this. But I need to be able to see what it is he's talking about.
So with the post process volume selected within the outliner, we see that we have a drop down called exposure and we have exposure compensation. Now, in order to edit any of these properties, you want to make sure that they are turned on first. And then we're able to
Turn on.
adjust exposure, but auto exposure is still turned on right now. So what we can do is select metering mode, and instead of auto exposure histogram, select manual. Now we control exactly what our exposure is with the exposure compensation. So if we leave it at 9, press play again, we see that we don't have any auto exposure in game. So you might be wondering exactly what the post-process volume is. Well, the post-process volume is a great way to add some effects after everything has been rendered. So the post-process volume only affects our camera. For example, maybe we want some more bloom, so we can select bloom, and right now the intensity is at 0.675. I can boost this up all the way to, let's say, 8.
God.
And maybe if I want the default values back, instead of trying to guess what the default values are, I could come over here and select that backwards arrow, which will set everything back to its default value. We also have a bunch of other settings. For example, under image effects, we can add a very strong vignette. So right now it's at 0.4. We can bring this up all the way to 1.
Ooh, that's cool. So where did he go for that? Image effects. Down in lighting, right? Shit. Static mesh. Advanced materials. What's it called? Lens. So he's in local exposure, lens flare, image effects, and then vignette. So I'm looking for local exposure, light mass. Oh my god. Networking, cooking, virtual navigation. Where did he go to do that? I need to go back up a second and see where he went. Chromatic aberration, dirt mask, camera. So he's currently in lens.
You guess what the default values are. I could come over here.
Okay, so he's in lens. So we're gonna close these so I can actually find freaking lens here. Networking, actor, text cookie, collision, physics, materials, advanced, static mesh, transform. What? Where the replication, actor, LOD, ray tracing, texture, mobile, asset user, level, data layers. What? Do I just not have it? Or am I in the wrong thing? No,
and select that backwards arrow, which values are. I could come over here and
so he's
instead
in
all the way
bloom.
blue, only way to add some effects after everything has been rendered. So the post-process volume only affects our camera. For example, maybe we want some more bloom, so we select bloom, and right now the intensity is at 0.675. I can boost this up.
So I was in the right spot. I just wasn't looking appropriately, I guess. Lighting. So I think it's in lighting. No. Dude, I fucked up. Advanced. Not there. Advanced physics. Constraints. Advanced collision. Sky sphere. I'm not even in the right section. I hit the wrong button, that's why. I was on the wrong thing. Motion blur. So here's motion blur, rendering. Uh, so here we go with the exposure. He was just talking about bloom. Okay, so I think we're actually in the right spot again.
All the way to, let's say, 8. And maybe if I want the default values back, instead of trying to guess what the default value
Man, bloom. Oh, that's why. As soon as I click back in the game, it fucks me up. So if we open up bloom, I can mess with the intensity of bloom. Okay.
Use R, I can come over here and select that backwards arrow, which will set everything back to its default value.
Back to its default. So this defaults it. Okay. Got it.
We also have a bunch of other settings. For example, under image effects, we can add a very strong vignette. So right
Image effects. So he's not in bloom anymore. He went down to image effects. Vignette. And this adds that interesting. That's so interesting. That's so cool. I think that's what they have when you get injured in APB. I think they just hit you with a vignette.
now it's at 0.4. We can bring this up all the way to 1. So there's a lot of darkening around the sides of the camera.
That's
Or we
literally
can
what's
completely
happening.
turn off vignettes by bringing it down to 0. So by default, Unreal does have a little bit of vignettes with it being at 0.4. We can also go down here and change some of the color grading. So maybe if I select saturation, I can move the wheel around. We see just a little bit of changes. I can even boost the saturation down here. So instead of 1, drag this up. And now we have a really vibrant and saturated scene. And
That's
of course
actually
I can
kind of
uncheck
cool.
this to get rid of that change. So if you want, there are a ton of different settings. You can go through and see what all of them are. But you might be wondering, how do I create a post-process volume if I don't have it inside of our world? So to begin, I'm going to press G key to bring back all of our editor widgets, select the post-process volume, and let's delete it so we can go over how to create a post-process volume from scratch.
Okay. So now we're talking about post-processing. We're going to get rid of post-process volume and we're going to delete. Okay.
Of course, we're going to select the add button. It's going to be under volumes. Down here, we have post-process volume. So simply drag.
So add volumes, post-process volume. Okay.
Drag this into our world and we see that we have a little square. So
Yes.
let's make a very quick change. So the change I want to make is down here within globals and saturation. Instead of 1, I'm going to change this to 0. But we notice that there are no changes to our camera right now. That's because
1 second. Let me do this. So he went here. He went down to global, saturation, and he made it 0. There were no changes though. Okay. That's what he's saying.
because the
No
post-process
changes.
volume by default only affects whatever is inside the post-process volume. So if we
Okay.
move into the cube, we can see those changes taking into effect. And right
That's
now, by changing
trippy as
global
fuck.
saturation, bringing it down all the way to 0, it gives us a black and white world.
No fucking way, dude. What? Oh my god, that's so cool. So if I increase the scale, so you can make an entire area have a completely different type of saturation. That's so interesting. That's actually really fucking cool. So you can make this whole thing specifically this type of saturation. So whenever you walk into this section, you get hit with that post-processing and suddenly the colors are gone. Oh man. Okay, let's see what he's going with here.
Now, what if I want this post-process volume to affect our entire world? Well, scroll all the way down here, and under infinite extent unbound, make sure that's turned on. So that's how we don't have to.
Infinite extend unbound, and it's all the way near the bottom from the looks of it. Uh, let me. So everything's down. I see. Okay. So it was data layers. No, it wasn't data layers. Cooking level instance. Advanced. Spawn collision, convert, actor, initial lifespan, find camera component, display. He said something about it being infinite, infinite extend, post process volume settings, post process volume settings. That's what I'm looking for. Actor networking, replication, brush, post process volume settings, infinite extend, unbound. So now the whole world has zero saturation.
To be within the post process volume for that post process volume to take effect. Now it's time to go over materials, but do keep in mind that materials can be a little bit complicated, especially if you're brand new to 3D art. So, if you do find yourself a little bit lost throughout this course, do keep in mind that you can always go back in a section and rewatch it. To demonstrate materials, I want to create a brand new map. So to do so, let's create a folder where we're going to store all the assets we create. So I want this folder to be under content, right next to the starter content folder. Right click.
Okay, so let's just Control S, saving this instance. But it looks like he wants to go back into content, starter content. He wants a new folder. New folder. What's he gonna call it?
And select a new folder. I'm going to call this folder My Stuff.
Okay. Simple. Simple. We're following his example though. My stuff. Okay.
And double click to go inside of it. Now to create a level, I could right click and under create basic assets, select level, but I want to use a level template since this will just create a completely blank level. So to use level templates, you want to come up to file, new level, and you can select open world or basic. I'm going to select basic. And now we
Okay. So we're currently in my stuff. New level. Basic. Great. So if I come in here, is it in my stuff? It's not in my stuff.
have a pretty basic level. It's just the floor right here and the sky. Now, in order to save this level in a specific location in our content browser, you need to press Control and S. And it's going to ask us where we want to save this level. Select my stuff. And let's call this.
Okay. So we're gonna Control S. My stuff.
One material example level.
Material example. Okay.
And then select save. Now, pressing Control and Space to bring up my content drawer, we can see that under my stuff, our level is saved. So if we ever want to go back into this level, I just have to double click and we will open up that level. Now, I do want to make some adjustments. If we zoom in on the floor, we can see that our grid is showing through and it's right on top of the floor. Now, this grid will be distracting when we're showing off materials. So I'm going to come up to show and uncheck the grid to
Hmm. Okay.
hide it. That's all we see is the floor
So
material.
he's
Also, I think
showcasing
this floor is
examples
a
now.
little bit too big for our purposes. So I could use R and hover in between the Y and X axis to then scale it down like this. Or alternatively, within the details panel of this floor, I can set it to 1 in the X axis, 1 in the Y axis, and 1 in the Z axis, just to give us a smaller floor. I also want to add in an object to place our material.
Okay, so he's making everything smaller. So we're gonna click on the floor. He very specifically changed these to 1, 1, 1. So we got some tiny little floor now. Okay.
Materials on top of, and we can do so by pressing Control and Space. And Unreal actually comes with a bunch of assets and objects by default. So this is content that is not located in starter content.
Okay.
Instead, it's located in the engine folder. And if you don't see your engine folder right here, that's because you need to come to settings and make sure show engine content is enabled. Now we get access to all of Unreal.
Okay. So we're gonna open the content drawer, settings. Show what? Engine content. I think it was engine content, right? Was it engine content he selected? Bro, I need to go back a little.
Settings and make sure show engine content is enabled.
Okay, got it.
Now we get access to all of Unreal's default content that is contained in every single project.
Okay, and so what that should show up in is here, engine content, and then C++ classes.
So let's go into content, and I believe it is under engine meshes, and it's specifically sm underscore map preview mesh. Now we can also select engine and type in sm underscore mat to bring up that asset. So I'm going to drag it into our world.
Okay, we're gonna do this a hard way though because oh, never mind. SM underscore mat.
And let's rotate it 90 degrees. And we can rotate.
Well, I mean, why is he rotating it exactly though? What's the purpose? Well, for now, what I'm gonna try to do is I'm gonna center it. Actually, never mind. I think that's good enough. I think that's good enough for what I want. So we'll see what he has in store.
It 90 degrees exactly by making sure snapping is enabled up here. Now I also want to control the exposure, since if we zoom in on the shadows and zoom out, we can see that auto exposure is enabled right now. So let's create a post process volume by going to volumes, post process, simply dragging it out.
Add volumes, post process.
I want this to affect the entire world, not just whatever is inside this box. So scroll down and make sure infinite extend back.
Okay, so we're kind of doing the same thing we just learned. So post process volume, we're gonna scroll down to it was like post process volume settings, infinite unbound. Okay.
Bound is turned on. Now if we go up here under exposure, make sure metering mode is set to manual instead of auto, and exposure compensation, we can bring this up. I found a value of 11 to be pretty good.
Okay. So back up to exposure. He enabled metering, manual exposure compensation is going to be 11 for his specific example. Okay. Where is it? Post process volume.
Now as a reminder, if your exposure isn't changing from your post-process volume, you need to make sure that inlet game setting is turned on. because otherwise it's going to default to EV100 setting right here.
I'm pretty sure mine is, but let me check real quick. In lit, right? Lit. Oh yeah, it is. We're good. We're good.
As the exposure amount. So make sure game view is turned on. That's how we're using post-process volume. And since I do like my scene right now, you want to make sure to save everything with Control and S. And actually, I think I'm going to bring down my
Okay, so we're gonna Control S. Control S.
exposure to, let's leave it at 10.5. So now it's finally time to go over materials.
So you adjust it immediately after saving? It's quite the Control S. I'm gonna save it. Uh,
And adding a material to your world is actually pretty simple. So press Control Space, and luckily starter content comes with a bunch of materials by default under the materials folder.
oh
So let's double
gosh.
click into materials, and we see we have a bunch of materials that we can use.
So he went to starter content materials. So starter content materials. Uh-oh. Settings. Show plugin content, show engine content, show developers content, show localized content. Just show it all, bro. Show me everything. I don't have. Oh, is it because I have matte on that? So if I go back to materials, oh, that's why. Okay.
So to add a material to our world, you want to simply hold down the left mouse button and drag it until you're hovering over whatever object you want this material to be placed on, and let go. It is that simple. So now
That's so cool. So let's say I want like a cobblestone for the ground. Okay, that's a kind of ugly. I don't like how you can clearly see it's just a repeated process. But let's see if he goes over that.
we have a brick floor, or for example, to make this object steel, I can drag a steel material onto the object and let go.
How fascinating. Well, he went with steel. Let's make it concrete. How do I change the? I'm hoping he's gonna show.
We can even add a grass right there like this. And we can see the reflections updates.
Oh, that's crazy. Hold on. What? Was it control space? Yeah. Let's make it mossy. And then for that, I actually want to see the reflections. So we'll go with the steel. Look. Wow, that's nuts. What about that chrome? I saw chrome. Chrome is more reflective, I think. Oh, well, that was not what I wanted to change, actually. That's so fun. Help! Help! I'm having too much fun. That is awesome. That is so cool. Look at that floor. Look at those details. That's crazy. That's so cool, dude. That's so fucking cool.
On the metal right there whenever we are switching our different materials, which is pretty cool. So let's select the grass. And I do actually want to make this just a little bit bigger. So let's scale it in X and Y axis. Like,
Okay, so we're gonna kind of follow his example. So we're gonna go back to that grass. We're gonna put the grass in there. Give it a second to load. Looks like he's gonna make it bigger. So we'll kind of get rid of the locking in thing. Let's see how big he
like
wants it.
this. And I think the screen is too bright, so I'm going to bring its exposure compensation down to 10.25. So that's the basics of adding a material to our world.
Where's the post processor? So he went down to 10.25. It's interesting how he keeps dropping it just a little bit.
What if we want to create or edit a material? Well, to create a material is also pretty simple. It's just like creating a level. Press Control and Space and come into My Stuff where we're going to create our material. Right click and under Create Basic Asset, select Material and let's call this First Material. And
He's making a material. Okay. Content drawer. We're gonna go back into my stuff. And it's material. First material. Enter.
press Enter and double click on it to open up the Material Editor.
Oh my god. Hold on a second, guys. Hold on a second, guys. We're actually getting into something kind of fucking ridiculous now. I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if I can do this one. This is oh, I'm stressing. I'm stressing when we haven't even started. So we have another window here. Okay. Oh my gosh, dude. Oh my gosh.
First off, before we go over any of these settings, you'll notice that my window is right now floating. So something I like to do with all my editor windows is to hold down the left mouse button on the tab and then dock it up here just like this.
Oh,
That's how really quickly I
that's so cool. Okay, hold on. So I can switch. Oh god, that's so much better. That's so much better.
could switch in between my main level view and any of my editor views.
Yes,
So in
I
the
like that.
middle, we have the material graph. Essentially, what the material graph does is basically we have a bunch of nodes that connect to each other, and their end goal is to eventually be outputted into one of these outputs right here, which will create the actual material. Now, the controls are pretty similar to the controls of our viewport when in orthographic view mode. So hold down the right mouse button to pan, and then use the scroll wheel to zoom in and out. So right mouse button pan, scroll wheel zoom in and out. You can select nodes by just clicking on them or holding down the left mouse button to marquee select. Now to the left right here is the viewport. If you hold down the left mouse button, you can pan around this preview mesh right here,
Okay.
which helps us see our material when we're editing it. Now we
Yes.
can change the preview mesh down here. So maybe you want to use a cylinder or a flat plane, a square, but for now I'm just going to keep it at a sphere. And right below that is the details panel. So if we select a node, we're able to edit that node's properties right here in the details panel. So how do we create a node? Well, we come all the way over here to the palette, click on it, and now we have a selection of all the different nodes we can use.
Okay. Oh man, I hold on a second. Hold on a second. Hold on a second. This is kind of a lot to take in. He's Hey, welcome CPU damage. How you doing, man? Welcome. I am learning how to uh, do Unreal Engine 5, and he's I think like 40 minutes in now, and I'm starting to. This is the first time I'm actually feeling kind of overwhelmed because he opened up a material mesh, and he's basically teaching us how to make our own material mesh right now, and this is. He hasn't even started. He's going over the layout, right? I literally just opened this, and it's starting to feel a little overwhelming.
To create a material. We can also right click anywhere to get that same palette. So
Okay.
under palette, I want a constant 3 vector under constant. The reason why is because a constant 3 vector is essentially Unreal's version of color. It's our
Okay. Okay. So we're gonna right click, and he said constant 3 vector. Maybe try taking small chunks. Well, I'm gonna end up stopping here in a minute, anyways. Well, in about a half an hour, I'm gonna be stopping because I gotta get ready for work. But I'm trying to learn as much as I can, and then while I'm at work, I'm probably gonna be rewatching these parts that I've already seen in this video to try to kind of like make sure I understand everything I've done. But it's been super basic so far. He's really has done a pretty crazy job at breaking things down into incredibly basic systems. So I'm sure he's going to do this really basic too, but it's oh my god.
G and B for red, green, and blue. Right now this node is set to black. I could edit it by coming to the details panel and double clicking on the color to get a color picker. Or I could
So one thing I want to do is I want to well I'm basically like I'm not recreating APB, but I want to make an APB like. And the one thing I want to do is to allow the same level of customization. This seems super fucking awesome, and I wonder if there's a way that I can well, I need to understand the systems first. So I'm just gonna stick with the tutorial, but I'm getting ideas, right? I'm getting ideas on maybe how I could implement something like this in the game
double click on the node
or make it accessible to the player somehow.
itself to get that color wheel. So notice how when I do change the color right here, there are no changes.
Because look at how convenient this whole system is. Can you imagine if I could make it so that players could like make their clothing have a type of like material mesh? Oh my god, that'd be like you could have so many like types of stuff.
That's because its value is set to 0. I can bring up its value by clicking on this rectangle right here. So now when I change this color, we notice that color changing.
Like look at this. That's so cool. That's so cool.
And when I do like a color,
I wonder if I can set up a kiosk that gives you access to this, but limits to what you can access and can't. But keep it small and doable. I studied game development in UE4 for 4 years, typically having your first project. Well, no, I'm not. If you're serious about game dev, start with something small. If you like, it can include customization, but keep it small and doable. Of course, of course. Well, I'm literally following the tutorial video right now. It's just ideas. It's just ideas, things
I want to
that
confirm that
maybe I
this node
can
is going to
do.
stay that color by clicking OK. So now we have our first node with a new color. Essentially,
Okay, so let me actually make sure I'm following along. So he made it what, orange? Let's just go with like this, I guess.
if I hover over this pin right here and hold down the left mouse button, I'm able to drag out a wire. And I can
Okay.
choose where I want to place these wires in any of the inputs right here. Now, of course, because this
Wait,
is
you studied for 4 years? Oh my goodness.
the
I'm probably going
color,
to be asking
it
you a
should
lot of
probably go
questions
into
then.
base color. So with my left mouse button still held down, I'm going to hover over the base color pin and let go to connect it.
Okay, that's simple enough. So we have. So his is significantly more basic. He's only got one pin. I got four. Why do I have four? So if I connect this pin to here, I mean it still worked, but why? So can I break pins? How do I disconnect the pin? Oh God. Delete, right? It's delete. No, it's not delete. How do I get rid of this? Backspace. Delete. A game design document. There's such a fun part, and it's where you plan everything out. I'd look at that after learning how to make the basics in UE. You have because of the tick at the top right. This? Control click or alt? Oh, perfect. Oh, hey. Woo! I think he goes over that. But what I wanted to do, why I was asking was because I wanted to see what happens if I chose the red one. But that one didn't do anything. What if I did the green one? That one didn't do anything either. So this is only to the white one. I see. Okay.
Now we can see that our
So he's got some kind of system that keeps it simple since he only did the one tick. Like an old monitor cable?
color
Okay.
is affecting our material. So let's see what this looks like in our level. So press Control and space, and let's drag first material onto the sphere, and notice that there are no changes right now. This looks like the default material.
Why? So we're going to go back to material. So we're going to do Control space. I have my material there. Did I save it? Hold on, let me make sure I save. How do I save? Control S? Did he do a save or did he just immediately... I don't think I paid attention enough. But we will drag and drop onto the material. No, I think I did. Never mind. I think I followed along well enough. Because the same thing happened. Perfect.
And that's because we first need to compile our material after we make any changes to see that change in our level. So go to first material, and to compile a material, you want to click on the apply button. And also while we're at it, let's save it.
Fuck, I knew there was something. I knew there was something. Only plugging red should only show red, white, should be all three. Oh, I see. Wow, that actually makes so much more sense. That actually makes a crazy amount of sense. So, since it was 1, 0, and 304, I'm assuming you only get the shade of that color based off of what the RGB numbers are. That's fascinating. But let me go back here to first material. So it was apply. Okay, I'm on a little shitty laptop, so it's going to be really slow. I apologize. Compared to his is super fast. Mine's really slow, but that's fine.
So if Unreal crashes, we
Oh
don't
no, his
lose
did
our
the same thing.
progress.
Okay.
Now, if we come back to our level, we can see that change took effect.
Oh. Oh my god, it did. This is so cool, man. This is I'm learning. I'm learning.
Now, jumping back into first material, if
But
we,
there's
let's say,
ideas.
change the
Oh,
color to a light blue, jump back into our level, we see that there were no changes
because he
because
needs
we
to
need
hit
to make
apply.
sure after we edit a material that we compile it with the apply button.
Right.
And now we see that light blue.
Okay.
That's how you
I
add
think he was
color.
just
Now, what if you
reiterating.
want to edit how shiny or reflective the material is?
Okay, so now we're
Well,
going
under
through
first
that.
material, instead of editing the base color, we're now going to edit the roughness channel right here. And roughness doesn't take a color value, of course.
Right.
Instead, it takes a scalar value in between 0 and 1. So 0 means it's really smooth, and 1 means it's really rough. To get a scalar value, you want to come up to Palette.
Or right click. Okay, I already learned that. But let's see what he...
And under constant, select the constant 1 value. Left mouse button hold, and drag it out.
Okay, so it's just... because it only takes a 1 and 0, right? I see, that makes sense. So we're going to pull up constant, and then... I guess it's this one. Yeah.
Now
And
we
he's
get a
going to do
node
1.
that is simply a number.
Yeah,
So 0
1.
will be smooth, 1 will be rough. Let's make this really smooth by giving it a value of 0.1. And simply left mouse button hold and drag it into roughness.
Okay. This is literally plug and play. That's actually kind of crazy how easy the systems are. What's up, hon? Oh, you can control it over here. What's up? What's up? Let me mute my mic. Wait, wait until you. So only. Wait until you see blueprinting. Oh, is it the same concept? I saw videos of people talking about like AI, like behavioral patterns, and it had a very similar system to what this is, but I literally, I didn't understand it. at all. But now that I'm learning this, it's kind of making like the pieces are starting to come together. I'm starting to kind of understand what they were doing those with those, but um, they were just like game devs talking about how they were making things. They didn't go into details.
Yes. If for some reason you ever want to break a wire, all you have to do is hold down Alt and hover over any of these pins and left click. So
Ah,
Alt and
you
left
see,
click
you're
to
right. Yeah,
break any pins. And we
that's
will
where he went
not see
over
this
it.
change in our level unless we press apply.
Of course,
So
of
jumping
course.
back into
Let's apply.
materials, I'm going to press F and hold down Alt and left mouse button to then pivot around my material.
Well, hold it. What is he doing? What is he doing? He started pressing F, so he's locking
So
onto
Alt
an
and left click
object.
to break any pins.
Why is he locking onto an
And we will
object?
not see this change in our level unless we press apply. So jumping back into materials, I'm going to press F and hold down Alt and left mouse button to then pivot around my material. All its nice reflective values.
I don't see, but I don't see it looking. Well, I mean, he did 0.01. We're gonna change the color on this. So let's change the color. I'm literally following his example. So we're just gonna follow his example, make it look the same, so that I don't lose track because I deviated. And then what I want to see, so I already hit apply, so we'll go back to this. He hit F. You double click F. How does he circle around the object? Or is he just controlling it like this? Man, that's crazy how good it looks. Look at it, it's moving. It's like a liquid. That's cool. Which one? That's so cool. I'm having too much fun.
Notice how we can see all the different clouds in the sky being reflected off the material now.
Oh, I didn't see that. There's clouds over there. Do I see clouds? I mean, I see the sun. I don't see clouds. Does he have clouds on
So
his?
that's roughness, but what if we want to make our material metallic? Well, go back into first material, and this is where the metallic input comes in really handy.
So here's the thing. Do I still need to do these specific flowcharts? Because obviously mine looks different than his. He doesn't have the numbers on the end piece, so he has to manually put in this thing. But looking in the engine on mine, because obviously this was during 5.0, mine's 5.5, I think. I can just literally put it in here in input one, and what's 100% metallic. So I don't know if I need to keep doing these plugins. I think they have it for the old school people who learn how to do it, but it seems to be already simplified to what I want. Unless there's a reason for it. Unless there's like
So we need another constant vector, and we could get it by selecting that node and pressing Control and D to duplicate it, or I can get it from the palette, and of course I can right click and simply type in constant. So normally when I am getting nodes,
so I don't need to follow this step then, correct? Because I already have they already made it simple, like easier for me to do it. The flowchart, I think the base color I still need to do it for, but these have a specific. The only reason why I think something like this would still need to be done is if I had multiple materials that needed to do the same thing. So I had to like connect it to 4 or 5 different materials. I don't think you don't need to, but a old school having the values in their own box allows you to edit them in scripting as a value easier. So yeah, so like doing like 5 or 6 objects with the same thing, right? So what I was, okay, I get it, I get it. So instead of having to individually do all of them, you only need to like mess with one. Hmm. I think for the sake of the tutorial, right? For the sake of the class, I'm gonna follow his process. Um, and let's see what numbers he goes with.
in, I just right click and type in the name of the node and press enter to bring it in. So I'm going to give this a value right now of 1, since by default,
So he's making it 100% reflective. Okay. So we'll do 1.
Default, there is no metallic value. It's set to 0. So setting it to 1 and plugging it into metallic.
Okay.
We'll make this blue pretty metallic. And in fact, let's go change the color to something orangey. Press apply.
So he's going back to orange. You rat bastard. Okay. And then we'll hit apply for the metallic orange. And then save. Control S just in case Unreal crashes. Especially since my laptop's really not great. I'm sure my RAM's gonna hit its fucking peak at some point and just be like, we are done.
And now we made a gold material. It's very important to point out that Unreal Engine's material system is based off of physically based rendering, or PBR for short. For example, right now I have a project open up to demonstrate PBR values, and the two main ones to know about are metallic and roughness. We've already played with them, and essentially both of them are on a scale from 0 to 1.
Right.
Now by default, metallic is set to 0, so there is no metallicness on the material, and our roughness is set to 0.5. Now as I bring down the roughness, we see our material get shinier and shinier. And then if I bring it up,
oh, he rotates
our material gets
sun.
rougher and rougher. So if I bring it all the way down to 0 and play with the metallic value, which is right now as default value of 0, so it's not metallic, but slowly we can see it goes from a plastic material all the way to a very shiny gold material. And if we play with a roughness value, we can really see those changes taking effect.
That's
now,
amazing.
both these values are clamped from 0 to 1. So let's say if we input a roughness
Okay. We are back.
value of -1, then it'll be clamped to 0. Or if we go above 1, then it's going to clamp it down to just 1. So keep that in mind that if you do try to input a value that's outside the 0 to 1 range, you won't see any changes.
Okay.
And it's important to point out that generally for metallic values, we never go in between 0 and 1. You won't really see a material that's 0.5 metallic. Instead, materials are either all the way 0 or all the way 1.
Is there a reason
There
for
I am
that?
back in our original project, and you notice that we no longer have our material opened up here. Well, that's fine. You can always open up the material on any object by clicking on that object, and then in the details panel we see all the materials that are currently on top of that object. So just
Let's see. So if I click on you, it should show right. Oh, look at that. First material, M water ocean. So that's the one that's moving. And then matte unreal text. So I think that's just that was the starting material that it came with.
double click to open up our original material we created. Alternatively, you'll see a little magnifying icon right there. If I select that, then it's automatically going to jump to that material's location in our content drawer. And then it's automatically going to jump to that. See a little magnifying icon right there. If I select that.
Oh. So I can find where they are. Okay, I see. I swear to God, I'm spacing out when I think I'm paying attention, and he does something, and I'm like,
then it's automatically going to jump to that material's location in our content drawer. And we can double click to open it up right there like that. So the PBR sliders we were just playing with are the metallic and roughness values right here.
Right.
So those sliders correspond with these values. So hopefully you understand exactly what they do now. Now I'm going to make a slight edit. So for metallic, let's bring it from 1 to its default value of 0. So that's how it's kind of like a plastic material right now. And also, I think it's...
I'm going to keep up. I'm just going to make sure I'm keeping up with him. He did metallic, right? Click on you, make it 0, enter, apply, just to make sure I'm 100% caught up with what he's doing. We're going to control S so I don't lose any progress, just in case. And then
it's a little bit too bright. So double clicking on the color, I'm able to decrease the brightness by playing with its value.
Right.
So bring it down a little bit, press OK, press apply.
It's kind of these parts, I hate these parts because it's like I understand these parts and I want to skip through, but I know if I skip through, he's gonna say something really fucking important, and then I'm gonna just completely not understand. I'm just gonna stick with it. Just stick with it. Just follow along. Just stick with it. These ones, I get it, but let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let's not skip because I already know I'm gonna lose my mind as soon as he does something crazy.
And now I do think we have a nice material, but normally when you have plastic outside, it wouldn't be this uniformly shiny. You would expect dirt to pile on this material and make some areas of the material rougher than others.
People clean.
So let's jump into first material, and to add a texture, press Ctrl and
It keeps hitting me. That's the problem, Xiao. It's like he'll like especially in these super these parts when he's like, we're gonna download. Now we're gonna like I'm gonna show you the interface. I'm like, okay, I understand that. I understand that. And it's like, but what if I were to just give 20 minutes? Let's get to the interesting things. Oh man.
space. Let's go into starter content. Since starter content comes with a bunch.
Oh, I wasn't paying attention. Hold on. We're gonna go back 5 seconds.
So let's jump into first
So
material.
he was talking about things looking dirty, right?
And to add a texture, press Ctrl and space. Let's go into starter content. Since starter content comes with a bunch of textures under
Okay.
the textures folder. And the texture I want to use is specifically T underscore Perlin noise.
Okay. Let's see where he puts it.
So to get a texture into your material, simply left mouse button and hold, drag it in, and
Okay. Got it. So control space. He went to starter content. He then went down to textures. He found like a pearl one. It's my eye. T Perlin noise. Is that the one that he was? I think so. I think it was the Perlin noise one. Let's go back to the video. Yeah, it looks like it. Oh, actually, it looks like smoke. Perlin noise. Bam. Okay.
let go like that. Alternatively, you can right click, type in texture sample, select that, and then within the details panel, in the drop down of texture, go ahead and find whatever texture you want to use and select it. So that's alternative way.
Alternative way. That's such a better way. What? What do you mean alternative way? That's so much faster. Just type in texture sample, then you find the specific texture you want to add in. Are you fucking kidding me? Okay, wait a second. How did he do that? Oh, Control Alt. Oh, no. How did he do that?
Alternatively, you can right click, type in texture sample, select that, and then within the details panel, in the
Oh, it's in the details panel. Oh, fuck. Right here. Okay, I see. That makes so much more sense. That's actually so much easier. We're gonna get rid of this. Where is it? Delete. Okay, because I don't think he's gonna use that one. I think he was just doing that as an
drop down
example.
of texture, go ahead and find whatever texture you want to use and select it. So that's alternative way to add in a texture. And now that we have T underscore Perlin noise, if we open it up, we can see that it's just black and white.
And we can
All the
modify
pixels
it,
of the
right?
texture represent a value in between 0 and 1. So they are perfect to plug into either metallic or roughness. Plug our texture into roughness since I wanted to drive the roughness value of our material, and delete the old node since I no longer need it.
Okay. Roughness. So you're gonna get deleted. You're gonna come here, and we're gonna put you in roughness. Oh, let me hit apply, and then let me hit Control S.
Press apply, chop it back into our material,
Fuck, it's 10 o'clock already. Oh my god, I'm running out of time.
for example. And now if I angle it with the sun, and here's a nice tip, if I hold down Control and L at the same time, I'm able to rotate that sun. So I'm able to bring it
That's
down, like,
so cool. Control L? Control L. We are immediately going in fucking with that. Are you kidding me? Immediately going in fucking with that. So he's got it angled. We'll just fucking have it angled here. Control L. Oh my god, that's awesome. So I see what he's talking about with the specs. You can see the specs. The speckles. My god, that's so cool. Look, you can just do a sunset immediately. Oh my god, that's awesome. We're gonna make a sunset. We're gonna make. This is probably my favorite time of day. Right here. I need to get it where there's no clouds. I love it when it's got that like dark, very crimson, orange, reddish. Right there. Look at that. Look at that. Okay, it looks evil actually, to be honest. Let's not have that. How cool. That's so fun.
move it around, and see what our material looks like in different lighting scenarios. And right now, our material is looking a lot more realistic. We can see that because of our material, all the black spots represent shiny areas and all the white spots represent rough areas,
Okay.
which gives our material a nice smudgy look to it to just break up that uniform shininess.
I feel bad for
At
the
this
cleaning
point,
lady
let's
that's gotta
switch
clean
up the
that.
colors. Since if I go into color mode by going Alt 3 for unlit, we can see that's still all one uniform.
What? Excuse me? Unlit? Oh, I see. Okay, so he just hit. I need to learn all of. I need to learn all the fucking things. That literally threw me for a loop for a second. I was like, what did he just push? How did he do that? But then he said unlit, and I get it. I got it. I
Color,
didn't know the
pressing
hotkey
Alt
for it.
4 to go back into lit mode. I want it where all the smudges are a different color that's a little bit more brown than orange to represent dirt. So let's go back into first
So he's
material,
gonna change the color.
and we can duplicate this by pressing Ctrl and D, or we can right click and type in constant 3 vector and select that.
Okay, we're gonna do it the harder way because I want to learn. So we're gonna do right click. We're gonna go down to constant. It was constant 3 for the colors. We're gonna move these down. And put this here.
So double click on this. I'm going to give it a brownish color, maybe like right here, press OK. And now I want to lerp in between the orange color and the brown color,
How?
depending on our alpha texture. So wherever there's white, I want it to pick brown, and whenever there's black, I want it to pick orange.
How do you do
And
that?
we can do this through a linear interpolate node. So right click, type in linear, and then interpolate, select that. Or a shortcut is to hold down the L.
Let's not do shortcuts. We're doing the harder. Okay, so we're actually gonna run this through some kind of filter. Through here. Linear. It was like linear interpolate right there. So this one's probably gonna go through A. This one's gonna go through B. I'm assuming. Now what I need to understand is how he connects these through here into the colors.
L key and left click. So L left click brings in the lerp node since we are going to be using that node a lot. And on the subject of hotkeys, if I hold down 3 and left click, that gives us a constant 3 vector for color. Or if I hold down 1 and left click, that gives us a basic scalar value.
We're not worrying about the hotkeys. We're not worrying about the hotkeys. I'm not worried about the hotkeys.
Like for metallic and roughness. So 1 and left click for scalar value, 3 and left.
Oh, or maybe I probably should because I'm probably gonna be like using these a lot. So maybe I should get used to using them now.
Click for color. So let's plug this up to A.
Okay,
Plug the
that went to
brown one to
B. I
B.
got that. Now I need
And
to see
for
how he
alpha
does this.
texture, I want it to lerp depending on our original mask that's right now driving our roughness.
Right.
So drag RGB into alpha and drag that all into base color. And now we can see that where our object is.
That's it? What? That immediately... So we'll keep it in the roughness. But it's also being plugged into alpha here. This... I need to change the color, of course. We're going to make it brown. Darker brown. Okay. We should update this. Oh, wait, no, hold on. Control... Drag you into base color. Got it. And then we're going to control save. This is looking wonky already. This is... Oh my god, what? Hold up. Hold on a second. Ugh, that's already a ton of like wiring. I need to try to figure out how to keep it simple enough for me to understand, but we got it. It just looks really ugly. But it's what he
Isn't
wants.
shiny, the color changes to a dirty brown. Pressing apply, jumping back in here, we notice that our material is definitely a lot more realistic. You can imagine that this was once plastic or really shiny paint, and over time dirt has slowly started to build up on the material, making it pretty dirty.
What do you mean realistic? You're acting like people don't clean shit. What?
Now we
Get
can
out
make
of
this
here.
even better by instead of lerping in between two colors, we're lerping in between a color and another texture.
Okay.
So there's a very good texture under starter content textures, and it is right here. So it's T underscore metal rust. Open this up. We can see what it is, but right now we don't notice anything. That's because the alpha channel is turned on and the alpha channel handles opacity. So if you ever open up a texture and you don't see anything, make sure you come up to A and uncheck that. So now we can.
Okay. So what he went to was he... We gotta go back for a second.
Texture under starter content textures, and it is right here. So it's T underscore metal rust. Open this up. We can see what it is,
So he just
but
opened
right
it.
now we don't notice anything. That's because the alpha channel is turned on and the alpha channel handles opacity. So if you ever open up a texture and you don't see anything, make sure you come up.
So let me at least find it. It was metal rust, right? So open textures. This one. Uncheck. I mean, it just looks like dirt to me, but all right. Let's see what he
To A and uncheck that. So
wants
now
to...
we can see it. And while this is rust, I do think it functions well as dirt, especially for a very small detail. Like on this material, it's going to be hard to tell that this is rust instead of dirt. So let's drag this onto our material graph
Okay.
and plug it up right there instead of the original dirt and press apply.
Okay. So drag and drop. We will then delete, move you up, and then plug you into B, and that should do the same thing. It still looks kind of gross, but it's okay.
Apply. So congratulations.
We're gonna hit apply, and then Control S to save.
You just made your first material in Unreal Engine 5. While it's not the best, it definitely is a good introduction to the power of the material graph. Before we continue, we first have to download some free assets I created for this tutorial to help us learn Unreal Engine. You can find a link to download the free assets in the description of this video. The reason why is because in this section, we're going to go over how we can take a texture and import that texture into Unreal Engine and use it in one of our materials. So to begin, I've
Okay. Does he go through how to download
already
it?
downloaded the assets for this.
No, he's already downloaded the assets. Here. Okay. This motherfucker just got my email. How dare he? Email with assets has been sent. Beginner assets. Download assets. And we're actually going to move everything real quick. Unzip. I need to unzip. 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 Extract all. Browse. We're just gonna put it on the desktop. Desktop. Select. Extract. Hopefully this doesn't take too long, huh? I've only got like I've only got like 13 minutes. And then I have to stop and get ready for work. Okay. So, intro Unreal 5. So we have it downloaded. Downloaded. I'll put it over here. We will full screen you. And we're gonna come back here. So we got the assets
Tutorial.
downloaded.
Right here, intro to Unreal 5.zip.
Yep.
Double click to go inside of it, and double click to go into intro Unreal 5. So I want to make sure that I do unzip some of these assets, specifically the beginner assets folder. To unzip it, simply drag it onto our desktop. We are going to go over
I kind of already extracted all of it, so don't worry about that.
assets and intro Unreal project in just a bit, but for now we don't need these. So I'm going to exit out my zip folder, and now we have a brand new folder with a bunch of assets we're going to import into Unreal Engine 5.
Okay. 1 second. Beginner assets. We have all. Okay, cool.
So to begin, we're going to create a very simple material using these three textures right here. You could probably guess that Spanish Pavement Color handles the color of the texture, Spanish Pavement Roughness handles how rough the texture is,
So he helps.
and the normal map, which is this purple texture. While it does look pretty weird, don't worry, we are going to go over what a normal map is in just a second. But for now, let's go import all three of these into Unreal Engine 5. So let's open up Content Drawer and go into My Stuff. Because you remember, we created a folder called My Stuff to hold all our assets. And I'm going to hold down my left mouse button and drag all these assets into my content drawer.
Okay, so this is drag and drop. Oh, that's cool. Where are you? Control space. We will go to My Stuff. And then you. He wanted these three. Control. Paste. Just make sure they're there. Cool. We're gonna hit Control S to save. Let's see what he.
Drawer. So you want to make sure that your content drawer is open, so you are able to drag it in, let go, and automatically these three textures have imported. So
Good.
we'll notice that all three of these textures have little asterisks right there that tells us that these textures need to be saved. So select all of them and press Control S, or we.
Okay. I thought I did that, but I don't think I did it right. So we will select all of them, Control S. Cool.
Could have clicked on Save All. So if I double click on Spanish.
So he's done with that folder. So I close the folder. Let me go back to full screening this.
Spanish base color, we can see that the texture has successfully been imported into Unreal Engine 5 and sRGB is turned on. For color,
sRGB. sRGB. So what do you do? Double click it? sRGB. Where's SR? Right there. Okay.
color textures, we want to make sure sRGB is turned on. For everything else, such as masks and normal maps, we want sRGB turned off.
So for the roughness one and the other one, he wants them off. So that one's naturally off. What about the roughness one? Off. Okay.
For Spanish payment roughness, we see that's turned on. I'm going to check this to false and save it. Now for our
Oh,
normal map,
oh, don't think I saved. Off. Save. Okay.
if I double click on the normal map, Unreal is smart enough to know that this is a normal map, so it already automatically sets some of the parameters. sRGB is turned off, which is what we want,
That's what I
and
saw.
compression setting is set to normal map.
Okay.
Now, if you do import a normal map and Unreal doesn't know it's a normal map, then you want to make sure that you set compression settings to normal map and sRGB turned off. So let's go create our material by right clicking, go to materials, call this one M underscore Spanish payment.
Okay. I need to stand up and stretch. I'm. Fuck. Give me a second. Give me a second. My legs. Oh, man. Oh my gosh. I needed to stretch. I needed to stretch. Holy cow, I needed to stretch. But I think we're going to stop at this point. So we're going to end it at textures. Textures. We're gonna stop here. We're stopping here, guys. We're stopping here. We're gonna end it at textures. So 55 minutes, 55:14. Um, man, holy cow, man. We went through a lot of information, but I think I got most of it. Actually, to be honest, I think I could. I think I can replicate basically the whole process in which we got up to at this point. That's awesome. Um, and holy cow, what a lot of information he's already kind of gone through. That's kind of nuts actually. And he just keeps going. He makes it more and more and more. We get to a whole point where we're making a literal create a game with blueprints. So that's probably going to be one of the more fascinating sections. And then castle intro, auto landscape material, large details, water, cliffs. So we're going to be making a whole like map. That's cool. That's what I want to play. That's what well, not play, but work on. I just want to make a map. Make a map. That'd be kind of cool. That'd be kind of fun. But we are done. We are done, done, done. 10. It's basically 10:30. It's 10:24. So I think it's a good start to stop. I am what? Not even a quarter of the way done. Holy cow, bro! This guy. I wonder if he did this in multiple recordings and just kind of combined them all. Because there's no way he sat there the entire time and did all this. That'd be nuts, nuts. But we're gonna call it here. We're calling it here. 55 minutes. We are at the 55-minute mark. 54-minute mark. Textures. Textures. And I'm gonna stop. I'm stopping. We are going to Control S to save all of my work that I've been working on up to this point. Control S. Save. Once again. Save all the fucking work. We're closing it down. Save selected. Holy cow, man. That is nuts. I got the free, like, monthly assets. So I might play with some of these later on when I know what I'm doing. But holy cow. Holy cow. Holy cow. That's wild. Anyways, I'm actually done. I'm actually done. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you guys for watching in the VOD. Anybody who comes through this, I'm gonna make a playlist. So this is, I guess, like my second one. My first one was only like 5 minutes because it was just me downloading Unreal Engine and then kind of starting the video. This one I actually did work. This one I actually learned a lot. This one I think um, there were a lot of information, a lot of basic information I understand, but a lot of information nonetheless. And this video is really good, like really good. But we, I'm done. I gotta get ready for work. So I'll see you guys. I'll see you guys next time. So hey, thanks for watching. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you. Peace, 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 peace.